Welcome to the BHI Network Policy Group meeting for November 13th and with our land acknowledgement. We would like to open this convening by recognizing that we are on the unceded ancestral land of the Coast Salish peoples, the traditional home of all of the tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. And we cannot fulfill our mission and our vision of an anti-racist present if we don't first acknowledge and recognize the true history and cost of colonization. However, acknowledgement is only a very first step. We urge you to engage in accountable relationships and informed actions. And then just a few quick first announcements. Please, again, be sure to send me any updates or info you have for our policy digests that are good for the whole. I do like to stay informed on the news pertinent to our shared priority, and you are the path for that. And yes, it is not just you. You have not seen a digest in your inbox for the last couple weeks. I have been a little occupied with state legislative work, but I'll be sure to be getting back to it this week, and you will see one in your inbox tomorrow. And if you're not yet signed up for those digests, please do so, and then please feel free to invite others to do so as well. We always want to continue to grow this network and our impact, and our digest is going to be full of advocacy actions starting in January. So if there are people in your life who are looking for how they can step in and something that they can do that is directed and contained, getting them connected to the Advocacy Digest is going to be something that could be a help of them. And then this is our last monthly virtual group meeting for the year of 2025. And yes, you're still in November. We're not yet done with the year, but in December, we will be doing our policy summit. So we do not have a December virtual meeting. And those new calendar invites for the 2026 different invitations per month will be coming your way next week. And also the BHI Policy Summit registration will be opening up tomorrow. And it is going to be a limited capacity event. So I do encourage you to go ahead and register early. And I know that given that the event is on December 18th, we may be brushing up against some of the holiday plans out there. But I hope that you'll be joining us. It is going to be an inspirational afternoon that we will have together on December 18th. And we're going to talk about a little bit more of that program shortly. So in our time today, we're going to start with an icebreaker. I know that we're all eager to hear from our policy champions, but we always like to take a few minutes at the beginning here to hear from one another first. And I'll be looking for people to share what gives them hope. And after that sharing, I'm going to provide you with a sneak peek of the BHA Policy Summit program. And then we're going to run through the current draft of the Homeownership Policy Framework for 2026. And I will be looking for your thoughts on what you see in that framework at this time, and also your insights about what might be missing. Brady Nordstrom of HDC will join us to walk through the new state bills for the 2026 session that continue that condo reform to ensure that more condos will be built and that they will be available for first-time homeownership opportunities. Ron Davis of Sightline Institute will help us understand the importance of the elevator accessibility bill. And this Senate bill was 5156 last year. It didn't find its passage last year, so it will be reintroduced. And it is an important part of ensuring that first-time homes can be accessible for all. So we'll hear more from Ron. And then lastly, Kathleen Hosfeld of Homestead Community Land Trust will share two state bills with us. The REIT Exempt Affordable Homes Bill was in the 2025 framework. It didn't have passage last year, so let's be sure that we're getting it passed this year in 2026. Kathleen's also going to be walking through a new bill that's going to be submitted for 2026 about interim use property tax exemption. And then, as always, we will end with just a few minutes of open floor time to get important news from you. And you can feel free to use that space to share news that's good for the whole. And then with that, let's go ahead and get into our icebreaker. So, given this is a policy group, I'm sure many of you have been following the elections and the politics throughout our cities, our counties, our state, and our country. And there is both hope and concern to see there. If you found hope there, maybe that's something you're going to share with us all today. If that hope that is currently radiating from you comes from somewhere else, from a loved one, from your work, from your passions, please feel free to share those. So for me, I find hope in the fact that each of you continue to show up for our shared priority to increase, maintain, and sustain homeownership among Black households. Even when you're unable to join this meeting in real time, many of you will review the video and stay connected, reach out to me with your questions and your thoughts. And I also get, messages of encouragement quite often from people where something in the digest may have resonated with them. And I absolutely love it. It keeps me going. It keeps me hopeful. I hope you'll continue to share. We're 3 years into this effort together, and there is much, if not more, enthusiasm for this work that we are doing today as there was when we started this. And so that gives me hope. So I'm going to go ahead and ask, can you share a slice of your life with us? What gives you hope right now? I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen for a moment so we can see one another. And I hope some of you will step up and decide to share today. And you've all been in the Zoom rooms. You know how hard it is to see everything all at once. So, feel free to unmute and step on in. What gives you hope in this moment? And I see Cliff.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and do it.
All right.
I'd probably say the biggest thing right now that gives me hope is that we are still allowed to have this type of venue where we can talk about home ownership in basically a non-judgmental space where we include everybody, because we all look like a rainbow coalition if you look at us as a holistic group. We don't look one specific way. We don't think one specific way, but we also have a common goal, which is Black home ownership. And what that looks like, we don't always know, but we do know that we have options. We do have a clear path forward, and that we have robust lending options, layering of different products to get people across the finish line. So that's what keeps me encouraged.
Thank you so much for sharing. Gave me a little bit of a tingles there. Loved that. Who else would like to share what gives them hope today?
I'd like to share.
Hi, Ms. Ruby.
Hi. My new 6-month grandbaby is in Seattle.
Oh, how nice.
I have knee issues, so I was unable to get to Atlanta this year. And he is just more beautiful than the pictures or FaceTime even show him to be. And I'm just enjoying him and my daughter and having a great time.
I love that for you. You are out there doing things all the time. So I'm loving to hear somebody's filling you up.
Yes.
Is there anyone else today who'd like to share what gives them hope?
That's all beautiful. I would just double down on the space that we continue to hold in this Rainbow Nation Coalition. It truly is a Rainbow Nation Coalition held by a shared purpose of increasing Black home ownership. This gives me hope. It gives me hope that progress can continue because we have partners who understand our North Star, and we collectively continue to invest the time, the action, the boldness it takes for us to see progress. So thank you all. I think elections also give me hope. I'm just excited. Excited for our region in King County, excited for Seattle, excited for what comes up next. There's just so much for us to be looking forward to going into 2026. I think excited for the nation. There's a wave here, there's a path, and there's so much more that we can continue to build on. So hold on to that hope. There's a path for a King County housing levy in 2027. I'm going to keep plugging that everywhere we go, because that housing levy will not only invest in rental housing, but also in homeownership. And the time to make that vision real and solidify a foundation is now. Thank you all.
Thanks for that, Patience. We have time for one more share. Cliff, you shared inside the chat if you wanted to unmute or if anyone else wants to share.
Sure, I'll do it. Yeah, no, I been thinking about this a lot lately, and basically thinking about, and especially given how it seems like nationally so much of so many of the civil rights gains that our, previous generations have fought for are being rolled back and attacked pretty viciously. But the fact that they did it, and they did not have social media, they did not have, uh, you know, um, relative widespread access to education. Hell, many folks, regardless of their education, could only find jobs as maids and waitresses. And when it came to being able to protest, being able to even rally, that they were facing physical assault. They were, going to be brutalized, and very few people cared. Very few voters amongst the public would care. They would just see a picture of the cops chasing black folks, and they would say, well, that's the news. But my forebears, previous generations, they did that anyway, not knowing that they would win. And we stand here today standing on their shoulders, regardless of kind of whatever positionality we have in this space. I feel like that is powerful. That if they could find joy, if they could find ways to move forward, if they can find ways to do it and sustain themselves and to stand tall, then certainly with all the wealth, all the education, all of the resources that we have in 21st century, we can keep that moving regardless of whatever challenges we face. In terms of tough questions, well, we just have to be smart about it. We just have to put pen to paper and work the equation and figure it out. You know.
Thanks so much for sharing with us, Cliff. I think hope is like food, is like water, is like shelter. It is an essential, and so very much happy to be sharing some time with you all today. I'm going to go back again to sharing my screen as we move forward in the agenda here. And I'm just going to give you a bit of a sneak peek. I have been letting you all know that the BHI Policy Summit, very excited. It is going to be in person for the first time, and it is going to be at the Northwest African American Museum. We will be having this on December 18th in the afternoon. Again, as I said in my hello, I know people have holiday plans, but it is the Thursday, so maybe you can fit it in before you start doing all the other stuff. I'm hoping to see a lot of you there. And it's back where it all kind of started. We signed the CHA bill at the Northwest African American Museum after it was passed in 2023, and we are going to be returning to the museum because we are nearly at 1,000 new homeowners assisted in closed loan through the Covenant Homeownership Program. And so we want to take this opportunity to mark this really momentous period of time here where we have created this amazing change. And so part of that program is going to be asking Representative Jamila Taylor to keynote the opening of our meeting, talking about what that process looked like, felt like, sounded like, and how she has seen it unfold in the last couple years, how she has been connected with people whose lives have been changed by that law. We're also going to hear from homeowners who can share their stories of how their homeownership journey was impacted by the passage of CHA and the ability to have that assistance. And then we're also going to, try to do something a little bit different. I mean, if you don't know your past, you don't know your future. And we will be sitting at the Northwest African American Museum. So rather than just seeing it as a venue for where we hang out in a room, we are going to give you time to be able to connect and view the exhibit and interact with one another in the middle of this period of time that we're taking together, because connection is everything. And I know you all understand that Representative Taylor's father, Dr. Quinter Taylor, passed away this year. A historian who has been so impactful. And so, in that spirit, we're going to take some time to be able to learn about history while we're there as well. We're also going to end that time together with a legislators panel. We're going to be talking about the state level actions that increase, maintain, and sustain Black homeownership. And then, of course, we'll have some inspiring closing remarks. Just wanting to give you a preview, not wanting to give you a total spoiler on the program. But again, I will be opening up registration tomorrow. I do hope to see so many of you there. It's going to be a really amazing afternoon together. All right. Well, the BHI Network Policy Strategy Group has been working very diligently together, meeting every couple of weeks to be able to keep their ear to the ground about what policies are out there that should definitely be included in our 2026 policy framework, and what deserves our advocacy to be able to further our shared priority. So I'm going to walk through what is currently on the draft list with, again, the caveat that it is a draft, it is in process. We have created an agile process, knowing that sometimes a new piece of policy will come in after our summit, or we didn't know about it. And so if you don't see something, definitely speak up and let me know. There are some things that are not included but are in consideration, and we're just waiting to find out if those things are moving forward. So we'll start with our category around funding. And for funding, we're always looking for those public grants that finance affordable home construction. We want to see sustainable home ownership opportunities created. The lead that we have at this point is not really one item, but is kind of a basket of items, just making sure that we are really following the City of Seattle home ownership and anti-displacement work. That could be something that we're seeing in the budget. We can see that in the Equitable Development Initiative. We also potentially may see it in a reparations fund or an equity fund. I know that we are all aware that we will have a new executive, so we will have a new mayor, and so we will see where we're all with that. We'll make sure that we're checking in and staying connected, but we're going to keep our eyes on what's happening at City of Seattle around homeownership and anti-displacement. In terms of support items, we're looking at the elevator accessibility bill that we'll hear about today. Kathleen's going to talk about the other two bills here, the interim property tax exemption and the REIT exempt affordable homes. And as I said, there's probably about 5 other cost reduction policies that are currently in consideration, but just getting kind of verification that those are moving forward. But I'd love to pause a minute. Does anyone have anything they would like to say kind of about what we see on this slide right now, or something that they know of that might be missing? All right, cost reduction. We're feeling good on that at the moment. And again, it will continue to evolve, but I'm going to go ahead and move us to our next. So our next category, oh, I'm sorry. Was I a slide behind? Maybe I was. Let me give you a moment to absorb that. The cost reduction, again, property tax. In terms of cost reduction, what we're looking at here is the property tax reform work and also the protecting of intergenerational wealth. This is 2 items that are working their way right now. These are coming from the Sustaining Existing Homeowners team, who is moving into policy work, which is really super exciting. And then in terms of support, again, that elevator accessibility, the property tax exemption, and the affordable homes. Feeling a little bit like I have something wrong here. I'm going to double check. Yes. Back in the funding, it was the Partnership for Added Development, Housing Trust Fund, King County Development, and Washington Future Fund. Cost reduction, what we just talked about, and we're going to move on to zoning and regulatory reform. So we have quite a few items here in the zoning and regulatory in terms of the support. In terms of the lead, it's a bit of a mouthful as well. We have the Scalable Starter Home Production Plan, which came out of the CHIA budget proviso. That was to make sure that we are getting the supply that we need. And so there are a number of different things that are happening with that right now. They are working towards modular construction development, and there are changes that need to happen for the L&I third-party inspections. They're understanding how to impact middle housing with standard approved plans. They are having a project management collaborative in order to enact everything that was in the Scalable Starter Home Production Plan. And then there is the demonstration project that will be reallocated this year. And so that is kind of the lead element, and they're wrapped into that Scalable Starter Home Production Plan group. In terms of support, quite a list. We have the Corporate Homeownership Registry Program, the positive rent payments to be able to start building credit for homeownership. Of course, limiting investor-owned homes to make sure that we are not impacting what's available out there in supply through investors buying up all of the homes. Mixed income housing on faith-owned land to make sure that we're continuing to use that faith-owned land to impact housing and stability for people. The performance-based code is about trying to make changes that are going to make it easier for us to actually build the middle housing that's been passed. And then Seattle Comprehensive Plan, you were all tuning into that earlier. The council right now is on a bit of a break as they talk about budget, but they will be coming back to the Seattle Comprehensive Plan. And now that we will have a new mayor-elect, that'll be an interesting intersection there about the comprehensive plan as it moves at the end of this year, and then we'll be back again next year. And then third-party warranty condo reform and unlocking stacked flats condo reform is something that you're going to learn about today when Brady gives us a chance to figure out what's there. And then the last category of the four that we use is the land acquisition and value capture. And right now we have the coordinated land banking bill. That was a bill that was in 2025 session. It will come back in 2026. I've been working quite a bit on this bill, and it is that missing piece we really need. If we're talking about supply and we're not talking about land, then we're really not talking about the whole story. We heard a little bit about this in one of our last meetings. We'll be hearing about it again. This is going to be led by Representative Hill, and so we're very excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now, and just let's have a few minutes here. I know that was a list. I did send out the link in the agenda, so you could go ahead and just hit that link and see it on your own screen in a way that works for you. But what I'm really interested in is what did you see missing there? Or what is there something that I just don't know about, that we just haven't seen, that you have your ear on the ground about, and you understand that is going to definitely further our shared priority for Black homeownership, and you'd love to see that on there. Anyone have anything they'd like to contribute in that way, or anything they'd like to contribute just in a comment of what they've seen there in that kind of draft list?
Bambi, I didn't see Ryan's revolving loan.
Yes, we're asking him to formalize if that's moving forward and how it's moving forward. For a hot minute there, it was maybe going to roll into another effort. So we'll be having a meeting next week. And if that's moving forward, then we will see that kind of reinvigorate. Ryan?
Yeah, that I probably won't know one way or another until December, patience on that one. But I think I do want to just take a quick second. I think the fact that it doesn't seem like anybody has anything to add in here, or at least much to add in here, I think is really indicative of the way that Bambi, you have run this process. I just want to take a second and acknowledge that and appreciate the fact that you've done a lot of outreach and a lot of work to try and make sure that this was an inclusive, iterative process that has kind of developed into the thing that we have now. So I just want to say thank you for that. Because I know that I felt like I was getting bombarded with emails and everything as well, but all of that is in service to this effort and doing this today, which hopefully is resulting in something locked in. So thank you for everything you've done so far in this process, Bambi.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And Kathy.
So I came to the call a little late, Bambi, so sorry if you already
No
covered
worries.
up on this. Which is the senior property tax exemption bill, which is
Senator
last-
Frank.
it's 5798. And so again, this is about, older adults, income eligible. It adjusts some of the income eligibility, but the other thing that it does is provides a standard deduction that people can take to help them become income eligible. And again, it's helping, lower income or even kind of slightly middle income older adults, but those that are on fixed incomes remain in their homes. And it also, we know we have a lot of intergenerational homes that people rely on that housing, and property tax is typically the largest, one of the largest expenses outside the mortgage that they have to pay. So we're at ARP continuing to look at how we improve the senior property tax exemption.
That's great, Kathy. And it is on our radar at the strategy group. And we've just kind of been waiting to see the new bill and to know that it's moving forward. But if you want to share that with me offline, that would be great. But thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, we talked to Senator Freeman. She sounded like she was still wanting to move it forward. So
Yeah.
Excellent.
We met with Senator Frame. She is committed to bringing the bill. I think it's only been a holdup of seeing the language. I would advocate, though, Bambi, that we proactively reflect or include it in a support. And Kathy, if you're already working with Senator Frame, we can lean on you and the work that you are doing through the ARP to track progress, have folks show up to speak in support.
sure, I'd love to work with you all on that. Thank you.
That would be great. Always looking for that advocacy conduit, because when we land up with 20 bills on our framework, that is a lot of following what is happening in a complicated legislative process. So the more that I can get those advocacy champions to be able to make sure we're getting those opportunities for advocacy into the digest every week and getting that out to this group, the stronger that we can step in on behalf of something. Kathy, did you have your hand up again, or maybe it's
Yeah,
just
I just thought of something else. I lowered it and then raised it again. Did you have Gregerson's mobile dwelling?
So that is currently going into the Sustaining Existing Homeowners group to have a conversation about it. And then we'll be coming back into the BHI Network Policy Strategy group after that.
Okay.
So yeah, we're in process around that with Sightline. Yeah, to learn about it and understand that. But like I said, Sustaining Existing Homeowners team has really been doing a lot about thinking about the policy intersection for sustaining existing homeowners, and that's a bill that's definitely risen. And they're going to have a nice Q&A and presentation to make sure that they feel it's a good fit.
Great. We're kind of going through the same similar type of a process as well. And I met with Dan Bertollet yesterday and Katie with Sightline and shared my concerns with the bill. So they're going to continue to kind of work on it as well. So.
All right. Working it from all the angles. I love it. All right. Well, if you have any questions as you review that, draft document link that you have inside your agenda, or if you have anything new that is emerging that you want us to be knowing about, make sure it's on our radar, or any other questions about something like this, feel free to always reach out, and I'll be sure to get back to you. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we move forward so we
Okay,
can honor.
Bambi, sorry,
Yeah.
one more question. Was there any, again, it's because I kind of came late, so it's my bad.
No.
Around manufactured or mobile home communities?
We do not have a current bill that we are seeing in consideration through the strategy group, but if you have something you know about, please send it my way.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. All right. Well, Brady Nordstrom is here from HTC to help us understand some new bills for condo reform. Brady has become a new emerging expert in this, given that, he did his first state bill last year, condo reform. It's a one and done, got it passed, amazing effort. We expect to see a good passage this year as well, but there are 2 bills moving forward, and Brady's going to talk about that.
Ishmael
Great.
had shared some comments in the chat, Bambi.
Okay, well, I will make sure to review the chat and make sure that I get those.
Great. Well, I will take over from here, and I'm going to share my screen really quickly. All right. So I hope that's showing up right. I'm just going to give you all a quick overview of state condo liability reform in 2026. I came a couple times last year to talk about the condo bills that Bambi was just mentioning. So we're going to share a little bit of why condos, what progress did we make last year, and then how are we building on that success in 2026. So there we go. So why condos? They are a relatively more accessible home ownership option. So this is just kind of contextualizing with some Redfin data that in Seattle, Washington, a median detached single family home was $870,000. It's higher than that now. Median townhome, $725,000. The median condo was $470,000. So that is a much more accessible homeownership option than townhomes or detached single family homes. So there's also a lot of people that this can help. There's first-time home buyers, and Rep Taylor was the sponsor last year, and she is leading the charge again this year. This first-time home buyers, that was her big motivation. But there's also families looking for accessible paths to build intergenerational wealth, and then seniors looking for affordable options to age in place in their communities. So I think there's also ecological benefits. We're trying to find infill development. We're trying to find how do we keep growing homeownership options in cities where most land is tapped, and condos are the answer to that. So but there's some issues that we've seen come up in Washington State and actually across the country with condos that have caused barriers to scale. So this is an example that came from a 2023 Department of Commerce study where condos are 5.3% of the overall housing stock in Washington, but they've only been 1% or less of new construction since 2011. That means that every year since 2011, condos have been shrinking as the proportion of the overall housing stock. So why is this? Well, state lawmakers passed well-intended legislation with unintended consequences, and that's how the story goes usually. The barrier that we've targeted here that was identified as well through this commerce study as one of the top barriers to condo construction is it's insurance costs. More specifically, there's this thing called the implied warranty of quality for new condominium construction that lasts for 4 years. This is, first of all, applied to condos, not other types of residential construction. So this is why we've seen this hit condos and not apartments, even if the building techniques are similar. But within the implied warranty, there's broad and vague language that is easy to litigate and hard to defend against. So this was priced into the cost of the housing. And a lot of developers, both of different models, in fact, have just said, you know, we're not going to do condos. So that's something that I've heard from a lot of different people. And here's some quotes from that study. Developers stated that they were not interested in condo development due to increased costs, risks, or previous experience with litigation. And then the second quote here, in total, stakeholders emphasize that there are currently very few incentives to build condos in Washington, particularly in comparison to other types of housing, such as single-family homes or multifamily apartments. So this is just a quick reminder of what we did in 2025. There was House Bill 1516. This was conducting a study of insurance coverage options for permanently affordable home ownership units. This was led by Rep. Hill and co-sponsored by Rep. Taylor, but there's also this list here that you see of other sponsors. And then House Bill 1403, which was entitled Simplifying Condominium Construction Statutes. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because this isn't the emphasis of my presentation today, but this study bill was pretty cool because it directs the Office of the Insurance Commissioner to conduct a study on insurance specifically for, and I quote, permanently affordable home ownership units or models, such as community land trusts, deed restricted models, limited equity co-ops, and this was the goal originally. And the study is due to legislature on December 31st, 2026. So we should expect additional action on this in the future. So moving on from that one to 1403, this clarified the implied warranty of quality. So this was to make it a little bit easier for developers to understand what was expected while maintaining consumer protections. And this also created an express warranty alternative for small condos. And small condos, and this is important in this context, it's a little bit in the weeds, but multi-unit residential buildings, which is 12 units or less, and then 2 stories or 3 stories if one is parking or retail. So that is a little bit restrictive, but the reasoning here is that these buildings are similar in the construction techniques as single family homes. And this 210 warranty that I'm not going to belabor right now, but a 210 warranty is what's usually used for single family homes. So that should apply to these condos. And this was a huge success, a step forward, especially for middle housing types. So that's where our departure point. And we had success because a lot of you, and we also have, and I'm going to make a pitch at the end of this. If any of you are interested in the bills that I'm about to share, we are convening a group of, it's a very broad group. It includes people from, I mean, this list right here, builders and experts, nonprofits, businesses, governments, residents and community members, and legislative allies. It's a very, very broad group of people that take action together and helped pass these bills. And you can see here, 1516 passed with decent margins, and 1403 almost unanimously passed. So there was an appetite for this last year, but this group is reconvening for these bills I'm about to share. So the first concept is entitled currently Unlocking Stacked Flat Condos. And I'll explain that in just a moment, as well as the second concept, expanding homeownership with state-approved third-party condo warranty insurance. A bit more of a mouthful, but there's a lot packed in there, and we wanted to keep it focused on that homeownership piece. So with this first bill concept, this is technically a trailer bill to 1403. So you know how earlier I was mentioning that very restrictive definition of 12 units or less, or 3 floors if one is parking, or 2 floors? Well, this would just change that definition to 4 floors or fewer. And the idea there is this is inclusive of stacked flats, fourplexes, etc. That, like, basically the definition that was passed last year is not inclusive of all middle housing types, and we want to unlock all of that infill home ownership potential. So this is the first idea. And then the second idea, with 1403, as we were just talking about, it limits that alternative warranty to these smaller condo projects due to the technique, and the product is the 210 warranty, Well, we can also propose legislation to enable alternate warranty options for larger condos. So, and the product's going to, of course, be different, but there are some precedents in other states. New Jersey is a great example that offers this. Vancouver, British Columbia offers this, and then there's a whole bunch of other states that have hybrid options between the implied warranty and a third-party warranty. But not basically, this is just an overview of the whole bill here. The builders can choose to participate in a state-approved third-party warranty. This would be a 2, 5, 10 coverage. So 2 for labor and materials, 5 for defects with the building envelope, and then 10 for structure. And the interesting piece here is that it's not going to, I think that there isn't an appetite to do a wholesale exemption from Wakaiowa. So there's going to be specific sections that this would exempt that builder from. And this, I think some of the safeguards here for consumer protections come from, the standards come from the FHA, and then the warranty is attached to the home, not the owner. So if you resell, there's still protection. And then this is where the Office of the Insurance Commissioner comes in once again, that the OIC would be approving the standards and then approving qualified providers and then making sure that there's compliance. So I think that I'm going to stop there. I think that that was a lot of information to throw at you, but I think at a high level, there's the stacked flats bill and the third-party warranty bill are at a high level, the two concepts that we are advancing this year. And I think there's a small caveat with that second one in that we are in active and I think productive conversations with Insurance Commissioner Kuderer and her office to advance this bill. And so there's that one caveat. Wow, I can't talk. There's that one exception, but otherwise, I think we're on track. So, any questions, comments?
Hi, Brady. This is India Clark. I just say that's encouraging. I agree with you. The developers that I've have come into contact with who talk about condos are often have a negative sentiment towards that because of the insurance. And so,
Great. Well,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say, no, I like the provisions that you've come up with.
Great. No, that's really, really encouraging. And that's actually a really great transition into, so you all just got a sneak peek. We are convening that broad stakeholder group yet again today at 4 p.m. And then we're going to convene strategically throughout session as needed. But if any of you are interested in signing in pro, maybe signing on to a letter or getting updates, I'll put my email in the chat here. Feel free to email me and I'll add you to that list. Some of you are already on that list, so thank you. But you all just got the first sneak peek. Kim.
Yeah, Brady, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the inclusion of small commercial spaces, the mixed use in the new proposed stacked flats, because that's one of those things that is so critical to having really vibrant, connecting neighborhoods. And so to allow those in infill lots is yay. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Are there other comments or questions? No. Well, otherwise, I just want to thank you all. I think Bambi may invite me back as the session proceeds to share some additional updates with you all, because it became so evident to me last year that nothing happens without a broad group of people pushing for it and pitching in as a team. And so yeah, I just appreciate all the actions that many of you took last year and hope that you'll be willing to do similar actions again this coming year. So thank you again.
Thanks so much for that, Brady. And way to just like finish on time, like to the minute. That's what I'm talking about. I love that. Like, all right. We're going to hear from someone we haven't seen in the room before. This is Ron Davis. He is a contributor at Sightline, and Ron is going to be helping us understand Senate Bill 5156. So this is the elevator accessibility bill. Again, it was in our 2025 framework. We did not see passage last year, so this is the year in 2026, and Ron's going to help us understand how that bill works out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much, Bambi. I know at least half of you in some form or shape or form from other types of advocacy we've done together, so it's good to see so many friendly faces. One thing I just want to say about the stuff that Brady was just talking about, because it actually segues really fortuitously nicely into what I'm doing here, is I love, Brady, that the bill that goes up to 4 stories, just because I know that I've seen the models that show the cost per square foot of building drops until you get to 4 stories, and then it jumps again, right? Because you have to start to use more cement. I think it's a brilliant cutoff spot for that middle-sized housing. And interestingly, sort of segueing into what I'm doing here with elevators, or what we're doing, Sightline's trying to do, is when we look at the list of things that would make things like stacked flats really more affordable entry points into the housing market viable, we believe that it's mostly a mix of code reforms and exactly what HDC is working on here with condo liability. So thrilled to see you guys working on that half of it. So this elevator reform is really designed to be part of a sort of larger package of things that we've already started working on in the past and will continue to work on in the future, to sort of chip away at the unique ways in which our code makes it really difficult in the US to build infill, stacked flats, medium-size homes, condos, basically, right? And because of the way things are set up right now, as Brady noted, there's this strong preference for townhomes, which are just a lot more expensive and generally pretty inaccessible for folks who have any sort of mobility issues. So let's talk about elevators specifically, though. In the US, our elevator rules are a little idiosyncratic compared to the rest of the world. So we require much larger, more expansive elevators. They take up a lot more floor area, so that eats into housing that could be built in the building. They're quite a bit more expensive. And there's also just no demonstrated benefit for residents' health or safety. Like, it's easy to dream up scenarios where we imagine it might it'd be better for this one particular use case, but there's just when you look at public health data across different countries, there does not appear to be any additional benefit to our rules. One of sort of the upshots of that is that in other jurisdictions, these kind of modest size residential infill buildings are much more likely to get an elevator than they are in the US, because we put so many requirements on them. It makes a lot of builders say, you know what, under the ADA, if the floor plate is 4,000 square feet or less, we don't have to put in an elevator, so let's not bother. So we want to start to fix that. Now, as Bambi referenced, we tried to do that last year, didn't get very far. So we've decided to take a more incremental step this year in consultation with emergency management services and some other folks who I wouldn't say we've gotten to like a perfect meeting of the minds with, but we're working on sort of a shared compromise stakeholder bill. We've made a few changes. So rather than try to meet European standards, which I think was a bridge too far, just a little too ambitious for now, we're going to stick with US standard sizes, but we want one simple rule change. So right now, when you build a building, if there are 2 elevators, the second elevator can be, we'll call it medium-sized. But the first elevator has to be quite extra large. Our goal is simply to say, like, hey, your first elevator should be able to be medium-sized, or your only elevator should be able to be medium-sized. So this is still large enough for a person in a wheelchair with someone standing behind them. It's still large enough for a stretcher if it is partially elevated. It conforms to all U.S. fire standards. There's no question of it conformity to the ADA, whereas there was some question last year. So this is meant to eliminate a lot of the concerns that came up last year, and instead move those concerns to a statement of legislative intent focused on, our eventual intention is to harmonize more with global standards, but we have more work to do, basically, acknowledging that. So there's kind of three big reasons to do this. The first is affordability. So even just this modest change, which is about 20% smaller, produces a savings of at least $10,000 per elevator at installation. It also, the hoistway is smaller. We're working on quantifying the dollars saved from that, but it is savings of dollars. It leaves a small amount, not a huge amount, but more of the floor area that's built for housing and less for hoistway. So you get a little bit more housing per construction dollar. As I mentioned earlier, it makes walk-ups or infill housing or small condo buildings a better deal relative to townhomes. There's all the advantages we were just discussing in terms of cost for that. And we really see this as part of a reforms package, like single stair was before, like condo liability reform. I didn't plan that, knowing Brady was coming, but they make this just a much more viable housing option. And of course, insofar as this becomes a more viable housing option, it increases their supply. So it's not just that they're cheaper to build or more affordable to build, I should say, but when you have an abundance of those types of homes, you're going to deal with pricing that's much more favorable. On safety, the first question, the kind of very standard question that comes up in the US is like, well, what are we giving up something on safety? And we really do not believe that is the case. So one of the tricks right now is that many infill buildings currently have no elevator. About 34,000 Seattle apartments are currently not served by an elevator. Now we don't believe, and even though we think it looks like NAIOP and some others will probably support it this year, we're not arguing that we know that everybody's going to suddenly put an elevator in every building now, but we do think that at the margins, this will get us to more buildings with with elevators, and that is a huge safety increase because there's a large amount of injuries that happen in stairwells. And so avoiding trips, particularly downstairs, is likely to be a big, significant safety improvement. Also, the medium-sized elevators are still extraordinarily safe relative to the large elevators. And there are jurisdictions from all over the world that allow much smaller elevators than this even and perform just as well on building safety and fire safety. We do also, I would just add, this is a little bit more attenuated to think about, but by reducing costs for these small condo buildings, we increase the likelihood they get built. And without those, that means families will be stuck with, either townhomes as the only option or single family homes, maybe out on the periphery, whatever the alternate is to not building these. And none of those have the same level of safety standards. And so we think, this is altogether likely to improve safety per person in our cities. And then last is accessibility. These small elevators, we do believe, like I said, will mean some buildings will be more likely to have them. That's great. That adds access to those buildings. We did some research and noted that Black Americans are disproportionately likely to have ambulatory disabilities. And so we feel like that's a particularly important thing around Black home ownership for this condo model type. And also it just turns out that Black Americans are also disproportionately likely to live in the exact size unit buildings that we are wanting to do these reforms in. Something I added to this presentation since sending it to you, Bambi, that a friend pointed out is that the other thing is because this makes compact neighborhoods easier to build, that's adding access as well. It's not accessibility inside the building, it's accessibility outside the building, but basically it makes accessible neighborhoods much more viable. So we love that. And then this is really just a summary slide. I don't need to belabor the point. It was a lot of information, so I'm happy to go back to affordability, safety, or accessibility, or whatever other questions you might have. Oh, and I see there's something in the chat. Let me just pop over there to see if I'm missing anything. Oh, no, just Okay. Kathy, I see that you're here. Joanna said to me that she is under the impression that AARP is planning to be supportive of this year, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to check if you guys have drawn that conclusion yet. We have not heavily started to evangelize the bill. You guys are one of the first we're working with, and then Donald, I will come to you next.
Good. Thanks, Ron. That was great information. I think a good plan because as an architect, I've struggled with some of this too, but also knowing that elevators in general, and particularly the small elevators we've usually seen as lifts, are also maintenance heavy. And, there needs to be reserves or additional budget for this when you're planning your building as well.
Well said. One of the things we're working on is trying to figure out the best way to quantify that for this size type or this change. We know we have some pretty good data on if we move to sort of what you just called lift. That's a great word for it, like sort of more European style. We know the savings are pretty huge. Some of that has to do with manufacturing and parts and rules of how they're put together and stuff. And this doesn't quite get all the way to that level, where you're talking about cutting half or more of the cost out or 3/4, but we'd like to do that. That's really what we'd like to aim for. But in talking to the folks sort of nationally who are working on this, on harmonization and the international building code leadership, we came to the conclusion that that the statement of legislative intent is actually the most helpful to sort of prompt them forward and move us all toward something that's a well-researched standard that will be acceptable in American jurisdictions. Thanks for calling that out. So yes, I'm not figuring that $10,000 is only capital costs up front. It's not the reserves you mentioned, which of course show up in things like condo fees. Oh, and Kathy says will do. Great. Good. And I suppose that probably, I know that this is not the sustaining homeownership group. And by the way, that reference to MDUs, I was in the meeting this morning when we were hearing feedback about that was discussed earlier. And I know that really is actually shaping the way we write the bill. So thank you for that. But I do think this also nestles under that rubric, particularly sort of along the line of why AARP may be supporting it, is just sustaining homeownership at times of life where ambulatory ability may be restricted, right? You don't want to have to be moving every time, either as you age and it becomes maybe a longer term condition, or as you intermittently face challenges. Popping back into the chat. I believe Jesse Solomon in the House, and I think it will probably be Jess Bateman in the Senate, but I don't know. But this is a Solomon bill. Yeah, because it was his last year. So, but we are, I will say it's Sightline doing some of this background negotiating work with outside groups to try to get everyone to a place of either being on board or not being too not on board, as you know how. Yeah, it's a really good point, India. I can't remember the exact number, but I remember Cecilia Black telling me from Disability Rights Washington a year ago, she was walking me through the numbers of like accessible units versus the proportion of the population that needed accessible units. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was quite bad. And obviously this provides access to a lot more. Yes, thank you, Ryan. You got that right. I have a Strom-Solomon problem in my head. I mixed them up.
I got plenty of examples of the similar for me, so I got.
So then yes, I guess, I mean, and then in the House, yes, I'm thinking of a different bill too. In the House, I think it will be Doar. I mean, it will very likely go through Doar's committee, and we've been talking to her about it. We would love, so as you think about this, of course, we would love both. Well, of course, we would love your support. We'd love to be able to, one thing we did last year in working with BHI was reaching out. I did anyway, was reaching out through Bambi when the time came for people to show up and testify, particularly around that parking bill I did. And I'm happy to, we can either do as sort of Brady did. I'm happy to take direct interest from people. I'm going to throw my email here, and please let me know. We can add you to our list, and or if BHI decides to adopt this, of course, I'd be engaged with Bambi over that. And or we are unfortunately early in, unfortunately, as in, it's the legislative session's coming soon, and not every last detail is fully baked, but we are still shaping our bills going forward, as was referenced earlier with the MDUs. So if you do have feedback or questions or things you want to make sure have been considered as we're writing it, we're very interested and open in hearing from you.
Thanks so much for spending that time with us, Ron, and helping us understand and refreshing our memory. And, if you do see some big changes at all in the language in the bill, certainly, feel free to send us your new version. But yeah, I will be sure to forward this PowerPoint to the group so they can review that at their leisure. And thanks for joining us today.
Many thanks.
All right. We're going to hear from Kathleen now from HCLT, and this time we're going to move into a different subject matter, but it is still state bills. So we'll be talking about one that was on the 2025 framework, the REIT Exempt Affordable Homes Bill, SB 5647. And then we'll also learn about a new bill for 2026, the Interim Use Property Tax Exemption. So Kathleen, feel free.
Bambi. So first up, we'll talk about the REIT exemption for affordable housing, which we ran last year. We had, and when we launched this intrepid effort, we had a House champion and a Senate champion, and then our House champion moved up to the Senate. So we had the great support of both Senator Alvarado and Senator Frame to introduce this bill, which essentially creates parity in the REIT treatment of sales of affordable home ownership properties. Previously in statute, an exemption was granted to what's called self-help home ownership or self-help housing that's for sale. That primarily benefits those developers who require sweat equity on to purchase a home. And as many of you know from being active in this space, the sweat equity model is only one model of affordable home ownership that's accessible to income qualified households. So we've been working for the last 2 years to try to find a path forward to expand that REIT exemption so that it applies to all forms of nonprofit developed affordable home ownership. So this bill specifically expands that. It calls out that this is not to be used for commercially provided home ownership. And the primary benefit is it reduces a cost on the sale that goes directly to the affordability of the home. So it either allows on the first sale for developers to do more with the funds that they have rather than paying these taxes, and creates a more efficient transfer for the sellers of these homes. So which in some models go from nonprofit or low-income buyer to low-income buyer. The bill passed in the Senate 39-9, had very strong support, and it's now back in rules because we didn't have that House champion. We are lining up the House champion for this year, and our Senate sponsors, Alvarado and Frame, say they are fully behind us, and we'll try to get this across the finish line early in the session. So that is that bill. Any questions about that one?
Yeah, Kathleen, this is Sophie. Can you hear me okay? With
Yeah,
Arch.
hi, Sophie.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi there. Might be an ignorant question, but you mentioned that that the REIT exemption would only apply to affordable homeownership units created by nonprofit developers. What about affordable homeownership units that are established through land use incentive programs like inclusionary zoning? How would this perhaps apply or not?
That is a great question. The bill that we propose doesn't contemplate that type of sale. I think we'd all be open to examining that. So Sophie, if you want to shoot me an email,
Sure.
that'd be great.
I sure will, and I'll include Mary Jane Walker, who I know you work with in the past. So
Yeah,
stay tuned.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, India, the bill as written and passed is focused on nonprofit homeownership developers, not for-profit developers. So, and it is specifically for those homeowners who are benefiting from a program where there's some type of restriction on their home ownership. So there are resale restrictions on permanently affordable home that restrict the equity gain on the homes. And that's one of the reasons that justifies the extension of this exemption to those types of buyers. In contrast to folks who purchase their homes market rate with the availability of down payment assistance, which there is no resale restriction.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Yeah, gotcha. But as we like to say, in nonprofit affordable homeownership, there's no such thing as a free lunch. All of the programs have all the programs from Habitat to other self-help housing, Community Land Trust. There's always a trade-off. If you're going to get a home for $275,000 that's 1 or 2 bedroom, there's going to be something that makes that program work that will be a compromise over market rate homeownership. Okay, moving on to the next bill. This is, let's see, Bambi, what's your title for this again? Well, our sponsor hasn't named it yet.
I've been saying interim use property tax exemption.
Great, thank you. We're going with that. So, as you all may already know, nonprofit developers of housing have a property tax exemption on land that they are holding for affordable housing development. And the intent was that folks who tie up land and then are waiting a couple of years to go through their design, permitting, and funding process, during that holding period, they would get exempted from property taxes as a way to help lower the costs of developing affordable housing. That was the intention. That is not the case when someone is using the property in some way. And 2 examples from Homestead's experience. We had a project in Tukwila where the property tax examiner went to look at the property before they granted the exemption. And because someone had parked their car just the other side of our property line, they carved out that small amount of land and said we had to pay property tax on the amount of land that the car took up, even though they weren't parked there with our permission. It just happened to be there the day that they did their exam. In a bigger way, we have a property in Tacoma, which is a full city block. It's the 1105 building. It has a former Rite Aid, former grocery store building, and then a large parking lot on it. For many years, this was a location of blight. The buildings were boarded up, chain link fence, were an eyesore. They attracted crime. They attracted campers and some other activity that folks didn't like. And under prior ownership, the chain link fences came down, the boards came off the windows, and arts organizations were allowed to come in, decorate the building, and use the building for both performing arts and visual art production at no cost. They were given no cost site licenses to activate the space. The Tacoma Urban Performing Arts Coalition, or Center rather, is the primary, this is the largest nonprofit that uses the space, and they have cute little kids coming and going, taking ballet lessons and dance lessons, and they use the parking lot and the building. But none of that generates income to us, and we have holding costs on that property. The property taxes on the property are about $40,000 a year. So when we applied for the exemption for that property, we were told no. The fact that you have these unpaid for uses means you're not actually using it for affordable housing development, and so you have to pay property taxes. This conflicts with the legislative intent of the original property tax exemption. So we have met with Senator Trudeau. She's willing to sponsor this bill to essentially do a surgical correction, if you will, to the statute that says during the holding period while the housing is being developed and funded, there will be carve-outs for public serving uses that generate no profit to the landholder. So that's it would create a safe harbor, if you will, for temporary site licenses of the type that we have, and would clarify being held for what purpose. We have, for example, we have 2 covenants on that property that indicate we will be developing affordable housing on the properties. And so those would be part of the application for the affordable housing, for the tax exemption, in a way that the process doesn't allow for currently. So that's that bill. And we think that this is germane to the larger conversation about land banking, because without this carve out or special power granted to land banks, which is another option, land banks will be subject to the same DOR interpretation that we have been subject to. Questions about that? Exciting stuff, I know.
Well, I think, Kathleen, the point is that you're always looking at those technical nuggets that you don't realize how much impact they have until you're trying to do it. Ryan looks like he has his hand up.
Not so
Ryan?
much a question as much as they tagged you for having a car that wasn't even yours parked on your property.
Yeah.
That is insane.
I know, it's DOR. Yeah, we just were like,
oh.
oh, for the love of God, just, yeah.
The amount of chaos I would have wanted to rain down and fire I would have wanted to rain down for that. Absolute insanity.
You know, we were like, just like, whatever, you know, and we didn't fight it. It was more work to fight it than pay it, so.
Yeah, that's when my petty gets involved there. That's good. That's the smarter approach, Kathleen.
Donald.
Yeah, Kathleen, for our faith-based properties
Yes.
that are exempt while they remain religious oriented, once they are going to produce housing, are they still exempt if it's affordable housing?
Yeah, so for example, Donald, because the church owns it, you just get the exemption, period.
Okay.
But
Still.
when housing, like home ownership, is sold on the land, those homeowners will be accountable for their fair share of property taxes.
I see.
So
I see. So it's not the development itself or the church that is liable for the taxes.
correct.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, Kathleen, we could get you a sign, you know, like 5 cents questions, you know, you just become our new tax expert.
Yep. Well, yeah, we really want to solve this for ourselves, but also for everybody else, and have an eye towards the land banking conversation as well.
Any last thoughts or questions for Kathleen here on these 2 tax ideas, one with the REIT, the other with the property tax exemption?
This is Adria. My question is about, does it, for the property tax exemption, does it have to be an all or nothing thing in terms of activities on the vacant land, let's say, or the land that's not being used for home ownership or affordable housing yet? If it's not making, say if those activities were making some nominal profit for the landholder,
we'd expect to pay property taxes on that, but
right,
yeah,
if
there's no, yeah,
proportional, you know, versus just
yeah,
either because the activities, maybe they're generating, you know, $10,000 a year, right? But then
yeah.
the property owner would be responsible for the full assessment of property taxes. It sounds like in the scenario that you're talking about, versus if those activities generated no profit, that only when they generate no profit does the landowner not pay any property taxes.
Yeah, that's what we're arguing for. And interesting, there's another related conversation in Tacoma around business improvement district and assessing levies on landholders for business improvement activities. And we were, I think, successful in arguing with the framers of that if we have covenants on the land that say this is going to be developed for affordable housing, that we should be, that the assessments should reflect that, not which otherwise they were assessing on the basis of the market value of the undeveloped land,
Right.
which is significantly more.
Right. So in this scenario, I guess I'm asking, is there room for a middle ground where
yes,
it's not all or nothing, but it's
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments coming up for anyone? And then, you know, we all know everyone is in a race against time to make sure their bill is written and all of the T's are crossed, and it's what they have. But as we begin to see these written bills and the language there, that is definitely something that you will be able to get links to, so that you can, you know, have another look on what you're thinking you're hearing and reading that in the legislative language. Well, thank you so much for that, Kathleen. And again, I mean, everyone is just like on point, finishing to the minute here. I love it. That does mean we're close to the end of our meeting here, which means at this point it's an open floor. So this is time for news from you, things that would be, you know, for the good of the whole here. We have about 10 minutes or so. And so, you know, something may have came to mind for you earlier in the meeting, in the middle of the meeting, or there's something exciting that you'd like to share with the group, feel free to go ahead and either, you know, unmute and share that, or raise your hand, whatever you'd like to do.
This is Adria again. I'm with the Fair Housing Center of Washington. We don't have any specific bills or anything, but I do want to just say, for the folks that are working on like condo related bills, our organization, we see a lot of issues with HOAs, homeowners associations and condo associations not following fair housing laws, which make it really difficult for people who are looking to purchase or who are tenants in condo communities. So if there's any way to just think about that and the responsibilities of HOAs as you're drafting those bills. Please keep that in mind. And I would say the other thing that we experience is related to parking and accessibility for folks with disabilities. And we run into a lot of issues when the parking is deeded to the home because the homeowner isn't able, or the condo association isn't able to make accommodations because each parking spot is deeded with the unit. So just considerations to keep in mind as folks are drafting bills.
Thanks for that, Adria. Anyone else have something they'd like to share? Good of the whole, just a few minutes left here. I'm going to give it a going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you all so much for spending this noon hour and a little bit more with us. I will be sure to get a video recording link for this so that if there are parts you wanted to review or something you need to share with someone who couldn't be here today, you will have that. Our next opportunity is going to be, as you see the digest coming out weekly, but to be together in December on the 18th at the BHI Policy Summit. Super excited about it. Haven't had the opportunity to do something in person and really looking forward to seeing you all there. So give you a few minutes back in your afternoon, and thank you so much. Have a great week.
Thank you.